Today, the Previa is getting rebuilt fuel injectors. 1, 2, 3, 4. New PCV valve. I don't think that one's bad. And a new grommet. That's what we're doing, chasing this P0171 code. We're heading to the fuel side and then the PCV. Hello YouTube! We are back in the garage with Floki, the 1994 supercharged AllTrac Previa LE. 299,847 miles. That's right, 53 miles away from the big 300,000 miles on the minivan, super van. Now we're at 3,154 miles since I replaced the head gasket. So that seems to be working itself out. We're still chasing a P0171 System 2 Lean Bank 1. It only has one bank, 4-cylinder. We're still chasing that code. So I'm starting to look towards... I haven't found a vacuum leak. I haven't found anything to do with airflow. Mass airflow sensor's been cleaned. Maybe I need to replace the mass airflow sensor. But today I'm starting to think it only started throwing the code after I put it back together on the head gasket. So maybe in here on the passenger side engine compartment panel, something in there is different. So I remember when I did the head gasket, I did not have new O-ring seals for the fuel injectors. So I'm thinking maybe we change that. So I have new fuel. I just went and got new fuel injectors. I'll show you those here in a minute from Rock Auto. I'm gonna pull that off. But just some updates. The van, it kicked some butt. It just came. It literally drove new personal record on this P0171. It drove 628 miles on a trip down from here, several miles here when I was driving it on the highway in the last video, all the way to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it made it all the way back to Taos, New Mexico before it threw a P0171 code. So 628 miles, that's a new record. But then in the same day when Megan was driving back from Santa Fe, 151 miles later, it did it again in Pueblo. But on the good news, best gas mileage yet, over 22 miles per gallon, 22.03. Quick review of the supercharged Toyota 1994 factory service manual. This is the supplement that goes to the main one on the non-supercharged, but I tabbed this page. So P0171 has a troubleshooting thing, but I just wanted to read this to you. Obviously, 171 is on the lean side, which means it has too much air compared to the fuel. But when you're watching your fuel trims, short term and long trim, it's the very last thing in here. It says, if the total of the short term fuel trim value and the long term fuel trim value is within plus or minus 25%, the system is functioning normally. 25% is how this thing is programmed. So after reading the internet, when I was getting this P0171 code, everything I read on the internet told me, hey, as long as it's less than 10, it's good. So the lower is better. We use the short term plus the long term, that combined value. Anything less than 10% is fine, operating normal. But you saw I was getting 21s all over the place. And this thing's probably not throwing the P0171 until it's over 25%. It's how this thing's programmed. Why didn't I just go read that in the manual? It was in there waiting for me to find it. Commencing operation, remove a lot of parts. That passenger seat is coming out. It's going to sit in the back so we can access that port underneath the carpet and get back to the intake manifold and the head and the fuel rail on the Previa. Removing an edge trim. What all we had to do? Remove the edge trim, remove the seat. 4 bolts on that. 2 bolts holding the seat mounting bracket. 2 bolts holding the jack, and fold the carpet back. Presto changeo. We have access to the panel. 8 more bolts, and we're going to be looking at the intake manifold. Oh my gosh, YouTube, this is harder than I thought. There's 9 bolts. 12 millimeter, 9 bolts, not 8. And now, for my grand reveal, I give you Previa intake manifold right inside. Boy, wouldn't that be cool if you could just kind of reach over there and do it while you're driving. There's the fuel rail. Because I'm trying to think, this P0171, it's come about since I put the head back together on the head gasket repair. So, I haven't checked this side of the engine because it's underneath the panel to find vacuum leaks on this side, or there's not a lot of vacuum on this side, but air leaks on this side. Not seeing any evidence of it, but I do know that I reused this grommet on the PCV valve, and the PCV valve was good, but they're cheap. So I got a new grommet, new PCV valve, those 4 rebuilt fuel injectors. We're going in here. We're going to change this out, put it back together. We're going to start it with the panel off, And I am going to spray some stuff around here and see if I can find some other leaks, because I know the EGR has a gasket back here. That's the only other one I can think of coming from right in this area. So not seeing any issues. I did do a little snub on one of the valve cover bolts right there. It had a little seep, not a leak, just a little seep on the bolt. So just snubbed it a little bit and see if that'll seal up. But 3,000 miles and it hardly had any seep. This PCV grommet is really weak. That came off really, really easy, way easier than I remember. So maybe I reused this. Yeah, I just was pulling this off because I'm going to replace it with this grommet. It fell down there, but I'm going to pull that grommet out, replace it. But I don't think this one's bad. I'll check it. But I just needed to pull this out of the way so I can get to these bolts. To move, got to lift up this wiring harness a little bit. I just need access to these 4 bolts on these braces. These plastic clips come off, and then I'll have access to 4 fuel injectors. Loose as that grommet was on that PCV valve, it's highly probable that as this engine gets warm, because it's only throwing that P0171 on very warm days when the engine is completely warmed up and it's been driving a very long time. It's possible that there's just a little bit of gap and it's allowing some air to get in here and then sucking it into the intake through this where it puts it back into the engine. So it's just showing up with more air. But we're also still going to change out these fuel injectors. I was worried that was going to stay in there. I was going to have to take the whole thing off again. Whew, glad it came out. And I'm actually going to reuse this PCV. It is perfectly fine. Hit it with some mass airflow cleaner. Again, I did that 3,000 miles ago with the head gasket. But listen, here's a little valve opening and closing. Just blowing through it with my lips in my mouth, it opens up perfectly, good airflow, and then it sucks it closed immediately, and it has a good seal. Much better than the new one that I just got from Rock Auto. That one really doesn't seal as good, so this one's going to go right back in. It's perfectly good. Be sure to get both 1, 2 factory service manuals. This is the normal 1994 Previa minivan, Toyota Previa minivan manual, and this is the special supplement for the supercharged Previa. So that was an option in 1994, the first year of the supercharger. So you start here, and if it's not in here, you go back to the regular book. So anything to do with fuel injectors is over here, but the trouble coding was over here on that plus or minus 25%. Just interesting note, gotta have both. Original book has how to get the fuel injectors out, but as we saw, it's pretty easy. All right, YouTube, I got some live shot. I popped all these 10mm bolts, 2 on the wire, so it should just be easy bolts. Some here, everything's nice. That should free up the wire. Actually, I don't know if I can do it. I just need it to move, so there are these plastic caps. They just kind of massage their way off. You squeeze them and they pop apart. I know what they're protecting. Just protecting the wires as they go in. We'll do this side first. Oh, yeah, I think I remember. Because it's just clip access. Feel like it's need. We'll just go ahead and do this side. Let's see that. The book actually says undoing the 2 bolts right requirements. It goes up, the other side goes top. And you have to do it. Alright, so these plates are loose. We're so loose we can do the 2 clips. Ready? Yeah, this one's taped from years ago. Just remember, just individual temperature sensor. So, I remember that if you squeeze, let's see. It's going to be doing this. Oh my god, YouTube. Are you okay? What are you doing? Sleeping on the job? Damn, it's hazardous around here. OSHA violations everywhere for Jamie cars. I don't know how it is. Honestly, I do not remember. I did. Over my teeth. There it is! Yay! So squeeze, go right back, right there, it's hard plastic, and it just lifts up just enough lightly. So there's the top, on the side, of my fuel injector. Down underneath, let's keep going. Push a little bit, friction off. Start on the place. Hold back your squeeze. That's right. Okay, now, this thing come off, back erase. How did I just now? Can't remember, I might have to take out the fuel rail. Alright, let me look. Here's where we're at, YouTube. Those 2 bolts to get they're right where my fingers are, way back in there. There's no way I'm getting a wrench in there. This is way easier to do when the engine's dropped. So right now, this connector, see what I meant? My little temperature sensor is broken. It's been like this for probably 6 years. So it's just taped on there, but it works perfectly good. Doesn't have a clicker anymore. It broke off years ago. This one's removed. I don't remember. There's 2 of them right there. Not sure which one's the temperature sensor and what the other one's doing, so I'm not sure. Why are there 2? I don't know. I'll figure it out later. Anyway, I now have enough space to get to this fuel rail. I'll just clamp this up so it kind of sits there, or just maybe just hold that on top, tuck it into the carpets how I think I did it last time. And now I have access to fuel rail. Should be able to do it. I gotta just get this bolt off. And 1, 2. There we go. Should be easy. Gotta love the smell of fuel in the morning. Got the banjo bolt out of the fuel line here to the fuel rail. I got one of the washers, which I don't remember where I put it. it's sitting here somewhere. I gotta dig it out. But the other one fell down in there, down on the top of the intake manifold. But have no fear, I should be able to get it out as soon as I pull this fuel rail off. I'll have better access. But it's just 2 bolts. 1, 2, and then off she comes. Can you see it? Right there. 1, and over here, 2. As the fumes build with the garage open to vent some air, woo! Fuel rail is out. It's sitting right here. I did discover that on my fuel rail bolts, it's got 2 insulators on either one. This one, when I put it back together, had fallen out and was just wedged down in here. You can see some red residue from the coolant. That's just where it leaked out when I was bleeding the air out of this little bleeder when I refilled it with coolant. So it sat in there, pooled, and then just evaporates off. It's no big deal. And yeah, it's out. We got fuel injectors here. Let's get this on the up where we can work on it on the workbench, and we're gonna pull these out and put new ones in. By the book. But can you see it? Before I forget, let's get this washer out. Oh, it is. I can just do it with my fingertips. Hang on. Thought it was gonna be magnetic to the tip of the screw. There it is. That goes on my banjo bolt. Don't lose that, and hopefully I don't lose it again down in there when everything's back together. We'll see. I'm going to stick it on the threads. There we go. Both of them are on there. Now I know where it's at. I won't forget. Let's go get this to the workbench. And they're out, but I used a little 1/4 inch extension and just tapped it with the hammer. So I probably killed my $10 core return on these things. So that's not that big of a deal. Anyway, it's probably going to cost me that much to ship them. Anyway, they're out. So here's what they look like. They're not terribly ugly or bad, but I know that there's a filter, and then it can get clogged up on the inside where the little nozzles come and spray through those holes. So I do know that it's inside there, so not really sure what's going on. But, you know, they could have been letting air in here, too. So air could have been getting in when it got really, really hot. If these little spacers, because these go from the fuel rail on this edge, so the fuel injector sits through here, and the tip is just inside this protective little coating, or the little housing here. So if this tip is just sitting inside of that nozzle, or that opening, it's got a little male part that pops out, and this sits over the top to isolate it. Could have been getting air in right there. And I didn't go this deep on the head gasket, but I was here, so it could have been these 4 guys. So I'm going to head over to O'Reilly's and see what they got. What was a fun excursion to my day? O'Reilly's, AutoZone, Ace Hardware, Napa. Nobody had these isolators. They don't even have it as a part number. I looked it up on Megazip. Sure enough, found the part number. $6 to $9 shipping from UAE or Japan. Before I went to the Toyota dealership with my part number on these isolators, I just thought to myself, I wonder if they were included in that engine seal kit that I had with the head gasket. Sure enough, there they are. And these have just shrunk a little bit over the past 300,000 miles or so, and they are just not as thick anymore. And there they are. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them. So let's get the new injectors in here, and these are done. They're cooked. Yeah, so these fuel injectors are rebuilt units from GB Remanufacturing. Premium gasoline and diesel fuel injection products. It's a part number 842-18128. Pulled them off of Rock Auto. I'll post the price on how much these were per unit, because I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm not running back inside. But they look to be identical. All right, so all 4 injectors are press fit in, and they are supposed to line up so they face each other nice and square. You can double check that on the back that you want the 2 big holes on each injector in a row straight line. This one looks a little bit off with the fuel rail. So they are spraying into the valves, intake valves. So that's it. Next goes on these plates that retain them. And that's funny because I took these off first. So yeah, they go on here now before it's ever inserted into the vehicle through the port. And they're mounted in. Braces are back in, the retainers are back in, and set to 5.4 Newton meters with the specialty little itty bitty 1/4 inch drive torque wrench. Thanks, Barkley! See, if I would have just read the factory service manual the first time. Injectors installation. Install delivery pipe, the fuel rail, with injectors. Install 4 new insulators to the delivery pipe. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we just did. Why didn't I do that first? And I'm thinking about, before I tighten up this fuel rail bolts, I have it all on there. I'm going to see if I can get the banjo bolt for the fuel rail to for the fuel line, the supply line onto the fuel tube with the O-rings in place, or that retainer in place, or washer, seal, because if I drop it again, it's going to go all the way down there. So I'm going to try to do it before I tighten these up, just in case I got to pull it back out. And it's on there. So it's still loose, but the banjo bolt's going in. I was able to hold my finger back along the back there just to keep it from falling through onto the top of the intake manifold, and slowly thread that banjo bolt on. So I'm ready to tighten this baby up. Well, we're cruising now. It's bolted up and tight. 14 foot-pounds. This one was 30 newton meters. I don't remember what that was in foot-pounds, but to be honest, I just did it super snug with the box end wrench because I can't get a socket in there and I don't have a claw. Vacuum line is back on the fuel pressure regulator. The fuel rail return line is hooked back on there. So yeah, now I just got to do this, put the clips on the top, and redo the PCV and the grommet, and redo the engine housing wire. So yeah, things are moving quick. And if all goes to plan, it's the fourth clip, if I don't have to take this back off to get it all to reapportion. Up, slides on nice and easy. Let's listen. Click. Yeah, I don't know why my wires were always run underneath these housings. Maybe someone replaced these and just did it backwards. Don't know. Maybe they were able to pull them out and replace these a long time ago, but I don't have any record of it. It just slides on there and clicks. See how easy that is? It just fits. The wires come through. It doesn't have to be underneath this housing, or this retainer on the top of the fuel injectors. So much easier. YouTube, I got the grommet back into place, and just as I was inserting PCV valve into the hose, look what I noticed. It's cracked right there. So it just comes off right at the top, right here. I might have to pull that wire back off. There's another little thing, it's just a little piece of hose. So yeah, let me see if I got another piece of vacuum line and we can just redo this thing real quick. And I had a little piece of Gates Barricade fuel injector hose, 7.9 millimeter, which is ironically the exact same as what I measured this, and it's the same on the outside too, just under 14 millimeters. So just going to cut it to that length. I'm going to measure how long that is. Obviously it's not going to be shaped, but I can make it work. And just like that, we have a new PCV hose. It's all in there. This grommet was way more tight with it going back through. Has a little cover. I don't even know what this thing does. It just keeps it from expanding, I think. A little resin, plastic resin there. It goes over right where the junction of the hose and the PCV valve. So it's all set. Got the little protector back on it. No kinks. It's sitting in there nice. Sits down so it's not going to hit. Yeah, so I think that's good. I'm not going to pull this out because it was super tight and I don't want to mess up that seal again. Alright, so I just did a little internet sleuthing, and the two sensors on the water jacket, this is coming off of the cylinder and going back to the radiator. So the top one is the temperature coolant sensor, and this one is the temperature gauge on the dash. Alright YouTube, I think now what I'm going to do is everything's put back together. It's ready to go. But what I'm going to do, the engine's cool. I'm going to I put the key in there. I'm going to reach across, turn on the car just to the on position, and see if that fires up the fuel pressure pump. If not, I might have to start it first, but it's got a cool engine. I just want to see if there's any fuel leaks, make sure I have this banjo bolt tight enough and that everything didn't create any cracks or leaks on the top of that cylinder block before it gets hot. So here's we go. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's just electrical. Okay, it's running. Now I'm just going to look here to see if I find any fuel leaks. Wow, it idled down really quick. No fuel leaks. You know what? It sounds like it's just running smoothly. Let's see what it sounds like in the back. I swear to God, it's more consistent. It was a little choppier than that before. That's smoother. No fuel leaking down in there, no exhaust smells. Where you can see, I'm not even looking at what you're looking at. I'm looking at what I'm looking at. Alright, no fuel leaks. No fuel leaks. I still got to do some electrical tape on my engine coolant temperature sensor. And we're just going to let this bad boy warm up before I close this hatch. Make sure we don't have any leaks. Go check engine lights. Nothing. Turn the AC off. Don't need that. Sorry about that. Probably made you sick reaching up there with my phone hand. Oh yeah, before I close this up too, we're gonna spray some mass airflow cleaner on here before it gets hot and see if it has any air leaks. And I want to do this before the engine's hot because it's flammable. No change in RPM. Kind of worried about that intake manifold, hoping I wouldn't have to drop the engine. There's nothing. Nothing. That's great news. Alright, she's running pretty good. I might have a little bit of an oil seep on the back corner of my valve cover down here. Or if that might have just burned off what had leaked before, but I just plugged in the OBD2. Let's see if I can get it to focus. There we go. So it's 5.5 and -2. 800 RPM. The temperature gauge is coming up over there. Everything looks good. No check engine lights. I can hear the clickety-clicking of the fuel injectors. Everything seems fine. I think I'm going to batten down this hatch and take it for a drive. I can always work on this valve cover and this head gasket. I don't know if I'll have to pinpoint that, but that's easily done. It's not leaking very badly, so I'm not too worried about it. Who needs a green new clip when you can just electrical tape it like it's been for years? This works just fine. And presto changeo, it's back to being a Previa with 2 seats in the front. Hatch is all closed up, carpet's back in place, trim's back in place. Still have the fuse box panel off because I'm going to take it for a drive and look at some live data and see what it does compared to what it did before. I did pull up the fuel injector costs. GB remanufacturing fuel injectors were $28.79 a piece, so 29 bucks. And a $15 core charge, so that's 14 bucks an injector. That's a no-brainer. Even at $29 an injector, that's pretty damn cheap. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, this was the super cheap one. I had to do a separate order because I forgot about it. The PCV grommet, $2.67. It's just a dormant, and then I paid $4.43 for that standard Motor Products PCV valve. Didn't put it in. I'm just going to leave it in my box for the future because the current one seemed to be better. So let's take this thing off the ramps, take it out for a drive, and see if we can compare some live data to what we used to have when it was still throwing P0171 codes, and hopefully it's done. Alright YouTube, about the same spot. Drove 18 miles from my house on US 36, turned around at I-25, and now I'm heading back towards Boulder. So it does seem that the fuel trims have dropped. Not drastically, but they're definitely down. Sitting around 13, and I think on the last trip through here it was at 15. And before any of the work I'd done on the oxygen sensors, it was over 17. So pretty happy with this. Definitely need to get a new valve cover gasket. I don't think I applied that right. I know there's a couple points right by the little edges where it goes around the distributor cap insertion stud. So I know that I probably didn't get enough silicone on there. Silicone sealant gasket maker. So anyway, I'll redo that. I got to order some new windshield wipers for the front for sure. And I'll grab that valve cover gasket, a new one from Toyota. We'll get the real one this time, and I will put it on with a whole bunch of gasket maker. But hopefully that little oil leak goes away. I can smell it when I come to a stop sign. Yeah, just 3,200 miles almost since the head gasket. It just decided to open up and start dripping. So yeah, 19 minus, well, that's about normal. That's about what it was before. 19 and 20 and 10. Bounces all over the place. Who knows? But there's no check engine lights. 21 minus 13, that's like an 8. 4.7 and 0. We saw that before when I really gunned it. I don't know. Let's see how far it goes before I check engine P0171 code. Alright YouTube, with an update. Driven all the way from Louisville down to I-25 and US 36, back around all the way into Boulder, north Boulder, Diagonal Highway, Longmont. Now I'm heading back home on Highway 287. And I gotta tell you, that was some bad math. 299,847 miles is not 53 miles from 300,000. It's 153 miles from 300,000. But nevertheless, still no check engine light. And there's our data on the thing, still green lights. But look at that, we are at 299,899 miles, rolling home. And pretty soon we're gonna click that over to 299,900, and we'll be exactly 100 miles from 300,000 miles. There it is! 299,900 miles! Woohoo! 100 more to go! We'll probably shoot a short and put that on there with it hitting 300,000. Who'da thunk it? Head gasket in my garage. Limited tools, limited ability, limited experience. And it's about 3,200 miles since that head gasket. So yeah, it's cruising. Be safe out there, YouTube. There it is. Fuel trims seem fine. I've driven it in all kinds of conditions. Stop and go, 70 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour. Everything is working perfect. If I can do it, YouTube, you can do it. Be safe. Have fun.